Welcome back to another episode of Shifty's 49ers Talk. In today's video, we're going to talk about and get to know a little bit more about the projected starting center for the 49ers in the 2022 season. That is, of course, Jake Brendel. We're also going to take a look at some free agent options and possible trades the 49ers could make if they feel like they will need to upgrade at that position as we head into a key season, which will be Trey Lance's first season as the starting quarterback for the Niners. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get into it. Let's give a quick background on Jake Brendel before we talk about some of his play in terms of positives and then opportunities. So Brendel is going to be 30 years old by the start of this coming season. He was originally undrafted out of UCLA back in 2016. He signed with the Miami Dolphins. Now, with Brendel, he really didn't see much action until the 2018 season. He did have a 3-game span where he started 3 games in a row. Overall, the results were mixed. His pass blocking was actually really solid. If we look at the PFF ratings, which I know are not gospel by any means, but it is an analysis to look at, it was a 77.4 rating in pass blocking out of 100. So that is pretty darn good. Then when we look at his run blocking, though, 58.8. So in order for him to be the starting center for the 49ers, he will need to improve on that. But some other positives, if we look at, last preseason against the Raiders in 2021, 94.4 PFF rating in 56 snaps, snapped the ball to Garoppolo, to Lance. So that's something that really, in terms of recent play that we can look at and point to, hey, he really has come on as a player. That's also another big positive with Brendel is that a couple of things. He has the ideal size and athleticism to play the position in this offense. He's 6'4", 300 pounds, like that, but his athletic ability is what really separates him. So a 9.94 RAS, which is raw athletic score when he was coming out of UCLA, which is out of 10, so that's phenomenal. He has the athletic ability to succeed in this offense. The other positive we want to look at, well, all of last season, he was the second string center. Who was the second string quarterback? That was Trey Lance. So they're already very familiar with each other, snapping the ball. I'm sure they've communicated a lot. They've talked about the offense a lot. We recently saw Trent Williams basically call Jake Brendel a coach out there because he's very familiar with the offense. So that's another really big positive. If we do look at opportunities, here's the thing. He's going to be 30 years old, but he's only started 3 games in the regular season. In his entire career, he's only played 250 snaps at center in the NFL. So it's a lot to put on his shoulders to be like, hey, you're the guy, you need to succeed, and we know how much of a value and a premium the 49ers put on the center position. It's typically why Shanahan will roll with veteran centers as opposed to younger guys. So overall, I think it speaks volumes, the fact that the Niners probably had a good clue that Alex Mack was going to retire, that they were happy to stick with Brendel, that they didn't go out and sign a free agent, that they didn't go out and draft a guy early, that they were fairly happy to go and roll with a guy like Brendel. But I do think there are options out there which I don't know if they would be an upgrade, but at least it would give a veteran presence as a backup at center, and we're going to talk about those guys coming up next. The first guy that I'm going to talk about as a potential free agent acquisition is going to be Billy Price. Now, if we look at Billy Price, 6'4", 308, he's only 27 years old, so still relatively young. Not only that, he clearly has some potential. He was a first-round pick back in 2018 by the Cincinnati Bengals, 21st overall. Now, overall things in Cincinnati, though, didn't work out that well. He had, mixed, performances there. Ultimately, entering his 4th year in the league, which was last season, he was traded to the New York Giants for defensive tackle B.J. Hill. Now, when we look at Billy Price, I think it's definitely someone who has potential, but is he ever really going to realize that? When you hear from Giants fans, they are, not losing sleep over the fact that he is a free agent, so that's something to think about. But Billy Price, he has some experience playing the position. He has 34 career starts in the NFL, which is obviously significantly more than Jake Brendel. Not only that, in his last 8 games of last season, 72.5 PFF rating. So, again, PFF is not gospel, but it's something to look at as an analysis. So he did improve a little bit as time went on there. Overall, though, I think it's a solid option for the 49ers to look at, maybe as they enter training camp, and if they're like, ooh, we don't really know if Brendel's going to be the guy, just to have a veteran guy around there who still has some potential to grow. The next guy I'm going to talk about is also someone who played with the New York Giants last season. That's going to be Matt Skura. So Matt Skura, he's 6'3", 305. He's 29 years old, so a little bit older than Billy Price, but, still somewhat in the prime of his career. Now, he, like Jake Brendel, was actually undrafted in 2016, but he signed with the Ravens. Didn't really see a whole lot of action in the first couple of years, again, similar to Jake Brendel, but when he did start playing, he actually played pretty darn well with Baltimore. Probably his best season came in 2019. At center, he played pretty darn well there. Overall, though, it felt like Baltimore felt like they could have improved, and they certainly did. They've drafted a couple of guys since then, and they moved on from Skura. Skura last season with the Giants, mixed performances again, but something that you would be getting with a guy like Skura would be the fact that he has experience at the position. Overall, 53 regular season games at center, and he's played in some big games also in the playoffs too, so that could be another option for the 49ers to look at. Again, maybe if Brendel is struggling or if he gets nicked up or anything like that during training camp or the preseason. Next guy after that I want to talk about is going to be Nick Martin. So Nick Martin is 29 years old, 6'4", 295, so a little bit on the smaller side, but still someone who could come in and contribute. Now, he was a second-round pick for the Texans back in 2016. He went to Notre Dame, and we know that the 49ers, we like our Notre Dame offensive linemen. Just look at Mike McGlinchey and Aaron Banks. So something to think about, too. He had 65 starts for the Texans in 4 years. Now, ultimately, his performance, again, like these other guys, and this is the reason why these guys are still free agents, but mixed reviews with Nick Martin in his time in Houston. PFF grade of 56.1 in 2020 with the Texans, and he's never actually had a higher grade than 66. So, in terms of that, it's definitely not looking good. I think he did have some solid seasons in Houston, and then last season he spent his time with the Las Vegas Raiders, but didn't play any snaps or anything. He was just the backup center in Vegas. But overall, I think he's an option too to look at, someone who I don't want to really say he has potential because he's been in the league for long enough now, but someone who has starting experience and also has played in some playoff games, so that could be another option to look at. And again, we know how much the 49ers like Notre Dame offensive linemen. The last free agent option that I'm going to talk about today is going to be Matt Paradis. He most recently was with the Carolina Panthers for the last 3 seasons. Before that, and probably better known as being a Denver Bronco, he was actually on the Broncos during their Super Bowl victory over the Carolina Panthers, which actually took place at Levi's Stadium. If we look at Matt Paradis, so he's 32 years old, 6'3", 300. He has a ton of starts at the position. To me, this actually is probably the most likely option for the 49ers, depending on Paradis' health. So when we look at him, he actually had an ACL injury in 2020. He did play last year, but his performance was not great last season. One of the actually worst in terms of overall in his career, simply because, in my opinion, he's actually coming back from an ACL injury. And when you play a position like center, which does require quite a bit of athletic ability, that could obviously hinder him in terms of his performance. But overall, look, he has 101 starts at center. 2015 went to the Super Bowl as the starting center, and the Broncos won that Super Bowl. So you gotta like that, To me, this is a guy who could be a potential one-year signing as guys like Donovan West and other rookie Jason Poe, as they really start to develop their game, they get familiar with the offense, build up that NFL strength and conditioning. That's something that I'm looking at as the most likely scenario here. Not only that, but we do know that Kyle Shanahan really does like his veteran centers, Alex Mack, Weston Richburg. So I think Paradis, assuming if he's healthy, I think should be on the 49ers radar. At the very least, I think he could be very good competition in training camp for Brendel. And just to have that veteran guys, I think would also be great for Donovan West and for Jason Poe in their rookie season. Now, after that, I did look at some possible trade candidates, and I really couldn't come up with a whole lot. You know, you either have centers for teams who are very competitive now, so they're not going to want to trade their starting center. But then when you have like rebuilding teams, you have teams like the Atlanta Falcons, for example, a lot of those teams who are very much in limbo. You know, they have young centers there and who they want to build around with their young quarterbacks. So I really don't know. I didn't really see any great options in terms of a possible trade. The one that I did see that maybe is an option is Austin Reeder with the Kansas City Chiefs. He was the center when the Chiefs beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl. But someone there who has experience, and the Kansas City Chiefs, they have Creed Humphrey, who as a rookie last year was just phenomenal. So maybe they would, be willing to part with a guy like Reeder, but we'll see what happens. Overall, though, I think that the Niners are probably they're definitely going to roll with Jake Brendel, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do bring in one of these guys in training camp just to maybe push Brendel a little bit. I like the potential of West. I like the potential of Poe, but these guys are rookies who are really not going to realistically push Brendel this year. So, guys, I want to hear your thoughts on the list that I gave out here in terms of possible free agent centers to pick up. I want to hear your thoughts. I'd love to actually hear some possible trades that you guys see that maybe I missed, maybe that I glossed over. I think it's a really, really important position, and especially for this year, Trey Lance, first year as the starter. So leave those comments down there, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'm going to say two things right now. The butt counts, and I'm going to catch y'all on the flip side.